What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. So as you guys may know, I will be supporting Andrew Yang in the Democratic primaries. And I kind of wanted to take this opportunity today to talk about this interview that Bernie Sanders did with The Hill about UBI, Universal Basic Income, and how he believes that his jobs plan is actually going to be more effective. And I want to talk about this because as we get further down the election cycle, some of you guys are doing phone banking or you're sitting down talking to your friends and family. You're going to be having these conversations about policy. And what I feel like could have been a really great opportunity for Andrew Yang, I just feel like it didn't go over the way it could have.
One of the ways that the global economy is changing is through the threat of automation.
Yes.
And one of your fellow candidates, Andrew Yang, has made this a centerpiece of his campaign. Some economists estimate that up to 50% of American jobs could be lost by automation. How would a Sanders administration deal with that?
And as he starts to respond, he immediately starts talking about, how big of an issue it is and how people aren't talking about it, which is great because he is acknowledging that it's just something that we have kind of swept under the rug. But as a Yang supporter, I'm really excited because I'm like, okay, he doesn't really have an answer right away, so he's kind of thinking about it.
There are people who disagree about the extent to which robotics and artificial intelligence will transform the economy. But there is no question that it will have a profound impact. I don't think anyone knows exactly what the impact is. And let me start off by saying, this is an issue that is of enormous consequence for working people, but it is an issue that has gotten nowhere near the kind of discussion that it needs.
And then he kind of ends by saying that he feels like his jobs plan is better. Now, when I announced my support for Andrew Yang, you'll notice that I didn't really say that I'm just a huge fan of UBI. Personally, I don't feel like UBI is the answer. With that said, I do believe that UBI is a step in the right direction. And this is the opportunity that I feel like Andrew Yang missed with his response to Bernie Sanders bringing up that his jobs plan would be better.
There is an enormous amount of work that has to be done, all the way from childcare to healthcare, to education, to rebuilding our infrastructure, to combating climate change, to dealing with our growing elderly population. Enormous number of jobs out there. And I believe under a Sanders administration, what we would do is create those jobs, and as people lose their jobs, there will be other jobs available. But I think most people want to work. They want to be a productive member of society.
When Bernie starts talking about how the nature of your work or the quality of your work and how that would be affected through automation, this is where his jobs policy actually falls short. He's saying essentially we're going to look at all the jobs that we currently have and we're going to use the government to give people jobs in different sectors. Well, the reality is the government doesn't really innovate that much, right? So you look at our most successful companies, your Amazons, your Googles, and things like that. These are not companies that probably would have come out of just the government. Our government, one, is pretty inefficient, but two, I don't think we would have really found a reason to create an Amazon or a Google or a Facebook. This is what Yang really could have focused in on. To me, Andrew Yang represents a new direction, right? Rather than the way you live currently, which is, you get a job to get money, to go buy stuff, to pay debt, to retire. I represent a new way of living. I think we can all admit that $1,000 a month is not going to change our lives that much. Now, with that said, $1,000 a month is a lot of money, but our fundamental way of living won't change. But what will change is our focus as a nation. That $1,000 a month is an admission that our current way of living is unsustainable, our current wealth gap is unsustainable, and that the way we spend our time currently, it's not really the way humans should be existing. And that to me is what's most exciting about UBI. It's not $1,000 a month so now I can go buy a red camera, which I'm definitely gonna do. The $1,000 a month is telling everybody automation is coming, automation is real, prepare yourself. We're starting out at $1,000. We're starting out with this measure and we're gonna be re-examining it. We're gonna be monitoring it to see if something changes, to see if this increases our satisfaction, our way of life, or see how we do on that first scorecard. And from there, we go forward. Do we need to increase it? Do we need to put in some new programs? Has someone come up with some type of innovation and now we need to give them some type of government grants? To me, Andrew Yang represents a different way of life, not simply extending the life of our current system. At this point, there's blood in the water. Yang has so many different ways to really attack Sanders. One, it's great that he's even being mentioned in a Sanders interview. But two, you look at the fact that Sanders at one point was even kind of supporting the idea of a UBI. So there's so much for Yang to really jump on, but this was his response. Bernie ignores the fact that money in our hands would, one, create hundreds of thousands of local jobs, recognize and reward nurturing work being done in our homes and communities every day. He also assumes everyone wants to work for the government, which isn't true. Now, this is where I feel like he really fell short. The only thing I really like about this response is the fact that he is acknowledging UBI is going to reward people who are doing that nurturing work at home. He really could have focused his entire answer on that in response to Bernie even mentioning that we're going to be taking care of the elderly or people who are doing childcare. And Yang could have basically opposed that to people who are already taking care of the elderly in their homes or being parents of their own children with UBI. I think his mistake here was he said too much without saying enough. His first point about UBI is that it would create local jobs. Now, for me, I personally just don't know about this particular point. When I take a step back and just look at UBI giving everybody $1,000 a month, my first logical point is that housing prices will go up. Now, I don't know how much they're going to go up. Maybe it's only $150 a month. Maybe it's $200 a month. But if you give everyone an additional $1,000, I don't really think people are going to start living together and saving all this money. I think where the UBI policy even comes from is wage stagnation. And rather than responding to Bernie's comment about people wanting to work, I think he should have taken this opportunity to attack Bernie's $15 an hour minimum wage. If wages were going up at the same rate as corporate profits, we probably wouldn't have such a large wealth gap. And that's why I think this is a real opportunity for Yang. It would show why Yang is a much more forward thinker than Sanders. This also would have given Yang the opportunity to say that just because we have UBI, it doesn't mean we can't also have a federal jobs plan. Yang needs every opportunity that he can get to really differentiate himself, to explain why he's different from everybody else up on the stage, especially considering they're not giving him as much time as he deserves on the debate stage, and they're literally taking him out of graphics that show where he's actually polling. When people tell me that UBI won't affect housing, I think that's kind of a naive way of thinking. But what I love about Andrew Yang specifically is that when people told him, oh, we'll just do a bunch of job retraining for automation, he goes and looks at the data and realizes that that's not really what happens in practice. And as a result, his whole campaign is based around policies based on what actually happens in practice instead of what we believe will happen in a vacuum. And I think that once his policies are actually put into place and we start to see what actually happens when everyone has $1,000 a month, he's willing to reevaluate. And that to me is why he's a much more forward thinker than Bernie Sanders. And to me, Bernie really just seems to be playing it safe with his policies based on the way things are today. Andrew Yang is about the future. These are just my thoughts. I wanted to get this out there because, again, you guys are going to be having these same conversations in your neighborhood. And if we can get a great comment section going where people can actually start answering these questions, that's what I'm looking to help create. I want people to be able to have great rebuttals. Those people who are going to have the questions or who are going to be trying to decide what's the difference between Yang and Sanders. There's a difference. Yang is about going forward. And for me, Sanders is just a little bit too behind. But with that said, I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. If you like this video, hit that like, subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next one.